tonight's hobby enhancement is some more of the slow and low rock and rye. Right, well, it's nearly the end of the year and it's time to update progress on the Black Seas fleet and a few other hobby projects, and to make lots of excuses for the things I haven't finished yet. So a while back I started the starter box, including some lovely brigs and some lovely frigates, and I think I showed them when I first had a road test of the painting of these fellas, and I showed them again when I'd painted up the entire starter box and rigged them all, which was, I was very proud at that point. I'd never rigged a ship before, and I'd done the entire starter box. I thought I was going to be a flash at that point. And since then I started a Black Seas terrain project. Here's a couple of bits I did ages ago and I showed. I've done another, I don't know, dozen or so since then. And I'm finding that this fleet is best done a bit at a time. I mean, it's a great change to do these ships from the other projects because, well, the other projects are nothing at all like this. This is a totally different hobby itch to scratch than anything else I've had a crack at. But it's sufficiently vexing that if I do more than a couple of ships at a time, I start to develop a twitch and start to reconsider my life choices. Andrew and I have been doing some Lieutenant to Admiral games, and the next one requires a third rate. So I painted up one of these. A lovely big beastie that it is. You can see how big it is compared to a frigate. A frigate compared to it, and here's a poor little brig compared to it. Brig looks like a little bucket that's going to get obliterated. So I did have a third rate because the next mission in the Lieutenant to Admiral game requires a third rate. So I got back into painting these, and while I was at it I thought, you know what, I'll do the other third rates as well. And because I bought the Spanish fleet box in addition to the starter box, it also comes with a lovely little gunboat squadron. Look at that. It's hard to see side on, it's so tiny. Let's put it like that. There's a nice shot. Give you an idea of the size of the fellows in question. And while I was doing that, I thought, well, let's do one of the first rates. You've got to have at least one first rate. So, oh god, I'm going to make room for this thing. Get a load of how big that is. That is a Spanish generic, if such a thing could be said, first rate. There we are. That's our Spanish first rate, with all its bells and whistles and rigging and everything attached, or at least the way it says in the rulebook. I know there's some people out there who do it historically correct, but yeah, no, I'm not one of those. And there's the gunboat squadron with a grand total of 1 dice for all 3 boats combined. So now I've painted these 3 third rates, the first rate and the gunboat squadron, in the Spanish colours. And I've paused at this point because in combination with the starter box, so in combination with those 3 frigates there and the 6 brigs over there, this makes for a pretty decent fleet actually. So the starter box, the 3 third rates, the first rate, makes for enough kit for a good afternoon of gaming. So this will basically keep us going for a while. And while I've been at it, I've developed a bit of a hankering to complement the ships with suitable scenery. I mean, I've also promised Lou that I'd paint up a bunch more Prussians and Warhammer the Old World is coming out soon, and I have another army to get through before I even collect a new army for that game. And while we're at it, we're going to wait and see if I can delay gratification long enough to do the Trinidad last. So I really like the plain timber look on the. That's not a very good one. Let's get a better one. Proper ink wash on it. That's a better one. Yeah, I really like the plain wood look on the ships. I find the boats are really pretty, just done up in a unpainted, effectively. They're well sculpted. The detail is really crisp, and it just works without having to go into specific fleet colours. But a whole fleet done that way would actually get a bit plain, I think. So the Spanish colours are a nice change. I mean, they're a good change from the British and French colours, which the British and French is what the other players in my group have purchased so far. We'll see if anyone goes insane enough to do the Americans or the Russians or something, but so far it's just UK and France. And the Spanish colours are going to stand out from them in a very serious way. And in fact, the more I think about it, the more I reckon having a mixture of plain unpainted ships mixed in with the Spanish red and black being so bright and stark will actually mix it up a bit, be a better solution at the end of the day. When it came to painting these, I kept it simple. I've come to the conclusion over the years that while I can paint to a higher standard than what I usually do, it's not worth the pain, and I'll never get everything finished. I'm painting more to have armies on the table these days rather than trying to maximise my individual skill in any given model. And I remember 15 odd years ago having this argument with some blokes down the games club who back then would have been roughly my age now, and they were saying, I just paint them to look good on the tabletop. I don't do any of this golden demon stuff. And I thought, oh well, yeah, you say that, but here I am painting my little heart out. Now I've got an older and greyer and have the consequences of breeding to contend with, and it's like, tabletop standard's good enough. So what I've done is block paint with the basic colours and dropped a black wash over the top. And I'm using Vallejo paints for the most part, but I'm sticking to the Games Workshop washes because the Vallejo ones come out just a little bit too gritty for my liking. I like the crisper line that you get from the Games Workshop ones, even when it's over Vallejo paint. So I've done the decks in wood. The main colour is red, although it's not as much of the boat's red as you think it would be. Done the mast in a mixture of black but with red spikes to make it pop. Bit of blue for detail on the back, a bit on the side, and a blue for the bowsprit, sprite, or whatever it's called, because you really need something to break up the red and black. And the white, I find when you use just a little bit of white, it really makes a model pop, and that explains the colour scheme. It's close enough to the historical version, such as is presented in the book. Now, I've been complaining about not painting to a good standard, but I'm just thinking, if you go on the Facebook page, there are some really awesome ultra detailed versions of these things that people have done, and I've got to hand it to them. It is impressive when you've got the patience to actually make that work. And I'll have to settle for mine looking pretty from about 3 feet away. I have noticed though that with this paint job, maybe it's because I've played far too much Warhammer over the years, but I reckon the Spanish are in danger of being labelled the bad guys. Just a hunch. So just a quick thought on scale, because the scale of these ships cracks me up. Let's put this fellow at the back. Then we've got a third rate, frigate, brig, And the itty bitty little gunboats. If you compare this to, this is a shack, it actually fit comfortably on a brig. This is, I don't know, a townhouse, an inn, something of that nature. You think it's just about to stick the gunboat in it. But if you put it over here next to the first rate, that boat is a hell of a lot bigger than the surrounding architecture. I'll just pop those away for now. So at the moment we are having a bit of a lull in gaming because, well, gaming the system anyway, between people's jobs going a little bit nuts in the silly season and people moving house, selling businesses, buying houses, and all that sort of stuff. Family things, the real world. But there'll be a lot more naval biffo in 2024 with some people getting into this who haven't had a chance to really get stuck into their fleets yet. I think 2024 is going to be the year of Black Seas for us. I'm going to share a quick note on my tactics as far as they exist and when I'm not crashing ships into each other. We have figured out that you've got more ships with bigger guns, you're going to have a faster game because frigates tend to do a lot of small shots at each other while having a decent hull rating, whereas a third rate will annihilate a brig in pretty much one volley, which is good because that means we're going to have big games and still actually get them done in an afternoon or an evening because we are all very time poor. And one thing I do enjoy is setting Andrew's ships on fire. So I've been putting some thought in how to do that most efficiently. Because, you know, with the setting a ship on fire, you've got equal odds of setting your own ship on fire as you do the enemy ship. So you could, in theory, hock a big broadside from a first rate to a third rate and have a pretty good odds of setting an enemy ship on fire using hotshot. But the odds are when you throw that many dice, yeah, okay, maybe you'll set them on fire, but you'll set yourself on fire at the same time. That's a problem when it's a third rate. But you can get a bunch of frigates, but I'd probably use brigs because I've got so bloody many. I've got a dozen brigs. I'm wondering what to do with them, and I'm thinking, well, they only throw a couple of dice at a time. So you could line up a squadron of brigs, throw a whole bunch of dice, and chances are only one of them is going to set himself on fire. But if you're hocking them all at a third rate, then you've basically exchanged setting a third rate on fire for setting a brig on fire. Bugger the brig. The preoccupation the enemy's going to have with putting out that fire is going to make that third rate a lot less effective. And I reckon that's a pretty good tactic. I intend to thoroughly annoy the shit out of Andrew by doing that to him whenever I get a chance. Moving forward, plan for 2024 is to knock off the rest of the fleet. I started painting them thinking I'll do a batch job, and then I just realised exactly how much work is involved in that. And I didn't get very far through the rest of them. I just sort of stopped and thought, you know what, I'll finish off what I can actually manage in the moment. So that's why we stopped with only, I think, 4 ships in the squadron of fellows. And I managed to get the colour right. The actual base blends in with the matte pretty well. And so I was looking at all of this and thinking, yeah, I must do a video on this. It's all looking very nice and coming along. And I realised it's actually not very much to show for the several months since I finished the starter set. I was wondering what the hell had happened. So I did a bit of an audit of what I've got done in the past year. So there's these fully painted and the partly painted Spanish ships. And I realised, well, I have actually just recently made a start on the Zench Army. 3,000 odd points, I really only barely begun it. In fact, this fella's still blue tacked. God, I have to get that out of the way so I don't crush it with the falling metal chaos dude. That'd be very Warhammer. And what else have I done? That's right, I finished rehabilitating the Dark Elves. That's a 6,000 point fucking army I finished. That took me about 3 years. I think it's a 3-year investment to get that army done, because I was doing everything else at the same time. I did a big bunch of atoll terrain for Victory at Sea. There you go, here's one I did earlier. Looks a bit better from that angle. I'm not entirely sure it really works in this 1 to 700 scale, but I might end up using it just for lack of any other terrain. That's right, I've done about 150 Prussians, including these. I've got another 70 odd Prussian infantry to do, 4 cannon to do, and what about 18 cavalry? Something of that nature, a shitload. Might zoom in on this guy, this guy's always good for a lark. Here we go. As giving orders to his men to graze my horse over here. What else have I done? That's right, I finished off the starter fleet for Black Seas. I actually started it a year ago, but I finished it off in, I don't know, February or something. And I did a bunch of Team Yankee minis, which are actually only half done, but it's a fucking enormous pile of them. And that's right, I started more of the Black Seas terrain. This is only the first two. Look at that. You have a little house on an island. Is that a zoom? Oh. There it is. Too close for me to zoom in that well with this lens. Anyway, so I've got another, I don't know, I think I'm up to a dozen or so of these things now. And, oh yeah, I did a bunch of games and videos, and I bought a fancy new camera that I'm still figuring out how to use. I keep zooming the wrong way. So that's it. That's the year's worth of hobby accomplishment. It's enough that I can't be asked to getting it all out of its boxes and putting it on the tables to show it off. But suffice to say, it's actually been a pretty productive year. The rest of the fleet will be a slow burn project. The only ship I really need is the Trinidad. The other ones will be nice to have, so I'll get around to them. And I'm going to try and do the Trinidad last, so it gives me enough sense of impending reward that I actually am motivated to continue to do the lot. There she is. Look at that freaking enormous thing. Captured and sunk at the by the British in the Battle of Trafalgar. Didn't actually have the most glorious service history, truth be told, as is often the case with stupidly big ships which are only built as a matter of somebody's vanity. So yeah, so it'll be a slow burn to do that. I'm going to pace it out over the rest of the year, because like I said, I've got those Prussians to get through. I've got a speed paint, a Zench army. I'll probably start on a new Warhammer army with whatever comes out in the old world. And I'm going to go gangbusters on Black Seas terrain. That is the main focus project for the next little while. A shitload more of these buildings. Now I've got a dozen of them sitting next to each other. I realise there's actually not very many. I need a shitload more, and they take about half an hour each to make if I'm not fucking around. So probably I'm going to need at least 50, 60 of those buildings, maybe more like 100. That's 50 odd hours. That's a few months worth of work, and that's before I actually build the islands themselves. So I'm probably going to pace that out over a few months while I do some Warhammer stuff just to keep myself sane. But yeah, so that'll be the focus moving forward. So I'll show that once I have something to show for myself. Otherwise, that's about it. I will pause there. Feel free to hit like, subscribe, etc., etc. This is a bit of a self-indulgent video rather than showcasing something of greater significance. But you know what? Someone who's never rigged a ship before, rigging up a fleet to playable standards, including a first rate. Yeah, I'll indulge my little moment. But for now, yeah, I think it's time to call it a night.